Let's get it.
All right. Good afternoon, Kathy. How are you today?
Hi, Mel. I'm great. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Happy birthday to you too. We are fellow Leos, so
That's right.
makes sense we're doing this in August.
I totally agree. Totally agree. It sounds like you've been celebrating.
Yeah, well, I'm sure as it is with you, your birthday is actually a month long. So yeah, I have.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We've had the pleasure of knowing each other now for over 5 years.
I know.
I can't believe how time has flown. We met through Women Tech Founders, a great organization here in Chicago. And as I continue to do these interviews, it really surprises me how many people I've stayed in contact because of that great organization. So
it's a great group. Yeah, I agree.
And I'm excited to see if we're still going to do the awards ceremony in the fall like we usually do, but I haven't heard anything about that.
I guess.
So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you because this is all about Kathy Cohen, and I'm super excited to have you here with us today. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Mel. Kathy Cohen. I've been in the consulting world for about 10 years. Most of my career has been with Accenture. And I most recently came over to Inspire 11 as a principal. And some of the things that I spent a lot of my time doing is really using design thinking and human-centered design in just about every scenario except actually product design. Definitely have experience there too, but I'm really passionate about using those concepts of like the people who use our stuff are people, and how can we just work differently? Like how can we do change management differently, thinking of employees as the human at the center? How can we use some of the concepts of design thinking to co-create with our clients? So I'm really passionate about that. And then just from like a geeky, industry perspective, I have a lot of experience in the insurance world with claims, fraud, been around contact centers for a long time. So that's kind of my professional background. And, I had a really good career at Accenture, learned a ton there. I'm with Inspire 11 now, and I'm really excited about this opportunity to kind of get in with this company at the ground floor where they're growing a ton. So that's really exciting. And then on a personal note, I live in River North. So with my husband and my 2 girls, I have Ella, who is 4.5, and then Liana, she is 5 months. So that's me.
That's you. All right. Well, I'm assuming during your 10 years of your career, you definitely probably had quite a number of successes. We were just talking about how you've been promoted 3 times, and that's quite an accomplishment. What other successes do you want to share with our audience today?
One of the things that I've loved about my career and have been just so profoundly grateful for are all the mentors that I've had. There's been men and women just throughout this time that they offer a sanity check. They help me get out of my own way. They help me see myself through their eyes. And in the last few years, I've really been able to be that person for others. And that is just I consider that such a success because I love doing that. I love finding someone who I think has potential and helping them live into, define what success means for them and help them live into that. And so to me, being a mentor while having so many mentors that I trust and value, that's a real success for me.
I can agree with that completely. Throughout my corporate career, I've had a number of mentors, and they have really helped me grow as a person. They help to identify some of my positive strengths, but also some of my weaknesses. And sometimes that's a tough pill to swallow, but it does help to grow you without a doubt. And so I've definitely had that experience. And one of the things I would like to do once I'm a little bit more established is give back to a younger financial planner of some sorts, because you and I are both in industries that are mostly male dominated. And so it's really our job, I feel like our responsibility to help bring and grow more women in tech as well as in financial services.
Like, think about how your career and experience for the last however many years that you've started your company would have been different if you had a mentor like yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and on that note, I would also mention for anybody who's listening to our interview today, if you are thinking about dipping your toe into the entrepreneurship world, if you will, having a group of other people that are going through the same journey with you has been a huge, huge help. So when I decided to transition from corporate to starting my own business, there was a group of us that got together on a regular basis, and we cried together and we laughed together and we shared different
Sounds awesome.
stories. And so I think that even if it's people at the same age or the same level as you, it's always important to have a team around you that are your tribe, your support.
It sounds like my mom group.
Okay, well, on that note.
Who know what's going on and what I'm going through.
Well, no, I mean, absolutely, absolutely. So along the way, what were some of the lessons that you learned, maybe that your mentors shared with you or had you open your eyes to?
Yeah, I think to your point about being in a male dominated industry, or just honestly, whenever you find yourself in a situation where people just don't have the same life experience as you, right? And they're just not going through the same things as you.
Right.
I think advocating for yourself and asking for what you need, it's the only way to stay in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I've really learned that no one's going to read my mind. No one is going to give me what I need unless I ask for it, especially if no one else around me is asking for that thing. That's a lot harder said than done, right? Because there are some things that feel kind of weird to talk with people about, right? Like, I think for my example, right, if you're like a mom and you have things to do, like, maybe you're still nursing and you need a pump at work, or maybe you have responsibilities in your household that you need to fulfill, and maybe you're something in your work schedule needs to change temporarily or something like that, right? What I learned is this other identity I have of motherhood does not make me less ambitious or competitive or less of a good worker. It's just that the world we live in isn't made for me.
Right.
And no one is going to change it for me. No one's going to change
it. I would even argue that you are more of a superhuman woman than somebody like me, because you are balancing a major executive career with having a family.
Well, I don't want to get into comparisons, and there's a lot.
No, but I'm just saying, I think it's fantastic that you have the capability of being such a rock star. It's not something that's for everybody. So kudos to you.
Thanks.
For taking those challenges and making them something that makes you so special.
But I think that what was hard for me to realize is if I want this world to work for me, and for this game or whatever we're playing or doing to be one where I had any chance of succeeding, right, I have to ask for what I need,
right,
even when it's scary. So that's definitely been a lesson. Not that I'm perfect at it, but that's definitely one that I would share.
And I think a lot of people struggle with that, whether they're moms or not. Like you said, schedules, asking for something that might be out of the traditional norm of how corporate is, just like you said, the kind of the game, the political landscape, how that all works. So,
or if you're diverse in any way, right? Like if you think differently, if you have different cultural things you got to go do, or I don't know, I can't presume to understand all different groups and people, but I would think that resonates beyond just if you're a mom or not.
Right. Totally agree. Totally agree. All right. So let's switch gears. One of the reasons that I'm doing this series is because I am a financial planner, and I do want to have our audience get some money tips out of this interview. So why don't you share with us something that you may have learned along the way?
Awesome. And Mel, you're not just a financial planner, you are my financial planner too. And I've loved working with you. I think that you know this about me, but one of the things that I learned about investing, which I actually learned in a class in college called personal wealth management, and I did not have any personal wealth to manage at the time. I had negative personal wealth to manage. one of the things they talked about is like, the stock market, it's, what is true about the stock market? And one of those things is that in a 20-year period, if you invest your money and then you reinvest dividends and you don't touch it, right? Like, right, if you look at the stock market as a whole, right, the trajectory is up, right? So what does that mean from an investment perspective, right? If you're, ready to invest in the stock market, meaning you have your savings all figured out and all those other things figured out, right? Like ETFs, index funds, that's the way to go. And just set it and forget it. Like, right, figure out what your risk tolerance is, set it and forget it. Because, I know people, maybe some of them are in my household that like play stocks, right? They like the game of like figuring out which stock to invest in so it goes up. Yes, I think it's possible to do it that way. There are people who spend their whole career trying to figure out what stocks are going to go up or down and when and where. But unless you have that time to get all that information, it's like gambling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're gambling, your brain is looking for a pattern. And when you win, it thinks it found it. It gives you this dopamine rush and you're like, let's do it again, which is, I think, what the stock market is like, unless it's your job or you invest in the way that I suggested. So I don't have time for that. I don't have enough money to gamble with the stock market. So that's my tip.
That's a tip I can appreciate because, a lot of my clients have decided that they want to get into the Robinhood game. And I say, fine, but don't put anything more in there that you're willing to lose than if you went to Vegas. Right. And what they're learning is what you just said. It's an emotional game. Unless you have your entire day to focus on when to buy, when to sell, what to buy, what to sell, it can drive you crazy. And a lot of people have lost money. So you definitely reiterate how I think about investing, set it and forget it, low cost ETFs, have a diversified portfolio, and most importantly, have a game plan. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Do you have any money tips on career advancement that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think there's two things, right? So like, let's talk about salary, right? I think negotiating salary, it's sort of like, ooh, spooky for some people, but I think my opinion on that is you need to have, figuring out what your salary should be is a lot easier when you have an opinion about it that's based in some sort of fact, right? So you should go ahead and do the research. There's a lot of ways to back into that, right? Like what you think your salary is comparable to in the market. And I wouldn't wait till the end of an interview cycle or something like that to share that information, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you have that opinion, you're confident in it, then you have a range, right? And you should share that up front so that no party is surprised about, what's going to happen at the end of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that takes a lot of the maybe intimidation out of it. And then I also think, negotiation isn't just about salary, right? When you're talking about a job, I think we make a lot of assumptions about what's possible, and we should approach it on like what needs to be true for this to be an opportunity for me. And like, I'll give you an example. Like I know somebody who, is thinking about looking for a new job, but their current job has a really good paternity leave. And they're like, should I do it now? Should I look now? Should I not? And there's a lot of assumptions they're making. One, that any new company won't have the same leave, or any new company wouldn't let them take a leave. And I'm thinking like, okay, like right now you have zero options, right? Let's say you interview with another company and you love them, they love you. And you're like, hey, to make this an option, can I have this much maternity leave and paternity, and can I be eligible for it right away? And you don't know until you ask, right?
Right.
If that's
anything
possible.
can be put on the table, right?
Yeah. So I would also think outside of your mind in the box, right? About what needs to be true, and don't make assumptions about what's possible or not. So yeah.
I think that's great advice. And thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for your time today too.
You're so
as
welcome.
many of the people
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, as the people have learned recently, you're quite the star on LinkedIn. So if anybody who's listening to this wants to reach out to Kathy Cohen on LinkedIn. We have over 4,000 views of our most recent post announcing Kathy as our Woman in Tech for her money stories this month. And I will go ahead and say, great to see you again, and we will talk soon.
Thanks, Mel. Take care.
Awesome. I think that went really well.